they don't want you to know this. Negative thinking is not weakness, it's slavery. It chains your mind, bends your emotions, and turns you into a prisoner of your own doubts. But Machiavelli would laugh at such weakness. He knew that the mind is a battlefield, and only those who wield ruthless discipline win. Today, you'll learn 7 brutal Machiavellian laws to kill negative thinking and rewire your mind with ruthless wisdom. No soft words, no comfort, just cold truth. Understand this: if you want to rise above mediocrity, you must learn to silence the noise inside your own head. Every doubt, every fear, every excuse. It dies here. Power does not belong to those who hope, it belongs to those who sharpen their mind into a weapon and strike first against their own weakness. Say it with me in the comments. My mind bends to no weakness, and stay with me, because by the end you will not only destroy negative thinking, you will reforge your mind into steel. Number 1. Cut the root, not the branch. Negative thoughts are parasites. Most men swat at them like flies, hoping they'll go away, but Machiavelli would never waste time fighting symptoms. He cut at the root. When doubt enters your mind, don't argue with it, don't reason with it, you crush it at the source. Identify where it comes from. Is it weakness, fear of failure, fear of judgment? Then kill it without hesitation. A mind infected with hesitation is a mind that bends to others, but a mind that eradicates doubt at the root becomes immovable. When you catch yourself spiraling, strike cold and fast. Replace hesitation with decisive action. Replace fear with brutal clarity. What must be done now? Do not entertain weakness. Entertaining weakness is treason against yourself. Say it in the comments. I kill weakness at the root. This is your first step to rewiring your mind into a fortress. And once you master this, no whisper of negativity can grow into a storm. Number 2. Dominate perception, or perception will dominate you. Negative thinking is not reality. It is interpretation. It is weakness painting illusions on the walls of your mind. Machiavelli understood this. Men are not destroyed by truth. They are destroyed by the way they choose to see truth. The coward sees rejection and calls it humiliation. The strategist sees rejection and calls it data. The weak man sees loss and calls it failure. The ruler sees loss and calls it training. You must choose which lens to wear, because perception is the hand that shapes your destiny. If you let your thoughts run wild, every obstacle becomes a nightmare. Every challenge becomes a wound, and soon your mind becomes a graveyard of broken images. But the Machiavellian bends perception into a weapon. He reframes every strike of fate into power. He says, "The world will not tell me what this means. I will tell the world what this means." When men mock you, you don't hear shame, you hear proof you are untouchable. When failure crushes you, you don't see collapse, you see the chance to rebuild sharper, colder, stronger. When fear whispers, you don't surrender, you strip it of its illusion and turn it into fuel. Understand this: most men drown in their own interpretations because they are slaves to perception. But the Machiavellian commands his own narrative. He takes control of the frame. He chooses what meaning burns into his mind. And once you seize that power, no event can break you. You will be unbending, unshaken, unshatterable. Say it now in the comments. I command perception. Perception does not command me. Let that sentence carve itself into your mind like stone, because until you master this law, you will always be at the mercy of illusions. But once you do, the illusions die, and in their place, a new reality is born, one that belongs to you and you alone. Number 3. Build the fortress mind. Every kingdom that falls from the inside, not by the strength of the enemy, but by the weakness of its walls. Cracks, betrayal, rot, these are what destroy empires. And your mind is no different. The greatest enemy you will ever face is not outside. It is inside. Negative thinking, doubt, weakness, self-sabotage. If your inner walls are fragile, if your defenses are open, you will be conquered before the first blow is struck. That is why the Machiavellian does not gamble with chance. He builds the fortress mind. What does this mean? It means discipline, ruthless, daily, uncompromising discipline. Imagine your mind as a citadel towering above the chaos of the world. It has gates, it has walls, it has defenses. Who do you let inside? Which thoughts do you allow to enter? Because here is the truth. Most men open their gates to anything. They let doubt walk in. They let fear settle in. They let the opinions of others eat at them like termites. And slowly their fortress collapses. They do not fall in battle. They collapse from within. But the Machiavellian is different. He guards his gates with vigilance. Not every thought is allowed entry. Not every voice deserves to be heard. He asks, does this strengthen me? If yes, it stays. If not, it is executed on sight. No hesitation. No mercy. Think about it. Would you let your enemy stroll into your home, eat at your table, and whisper poison in your ear? Of course not. Yet, how many times have you allowed your own mind to host weakness? How many times have you replayed failure, nurtured doubt, entertained fear? That is betrayal. Self-betrayal. And the Machiavellian knows betrayal from within is the deadliest kind. The fortress mind demands a shift in how you process attacks. When insults come, you do not crumble, you observe. When failure strikes, you do not despair, you calculate. When chaos surrounds you, you do not break, you stand still, unmoved, untouchable. You must be like stone, solid, unyielding, indifferent to the noise of the crowd. Understand this. The fortress mind is not built in a day. It is built through repetition, through daily training, through ruthless rejection of weakness. Every time you stop yourself from indulging in self-pity, you lay another brick. Every time you silence the voice of doubt, you reinforce your walls. Every time you choose focus over distraction, you fortify your gates. Slowly, piece by piece, you build an empire of thought that cannot be invaded. Machiavelli warned, men who cannot command themselves cannot command anyone else. This is the essence of the fortress mind. If you cannot protect your mental kingdom, the world will plunder you. Daily, opinions will control you, fear will chain you, doubt will dictate your every move. But if your fortress is secure, nothing can touch you, not their words, not their envy, not even your own fear. This is why the fortress mind is so rare, because it is hard. It requires the strength to reject comfort, the willingness to stand alone, the ruthlessness to kill weakness before it grows. But once built, it is unbreakable, and the man who possesses it becomes untouchable. Say it now in the comments. My mind is a fortress. Nothing breaks me. Carve that sentence into your soul, because the moment you believe it, you begin to live it. And once your fortress stands, you will not fear the storm. You will be the storm. Number 4. Detach ruthlessly or be dragged into weakness. Attachment is the most silent form of slavery. It hides itself as loyalty, as hope, as love, as ambition, but beneath the mask, it is a chain around your neck. And the cruel truth is this: the tighter you cling, the deeper you bleed. Negative thinking feeds on attachment. You attach yourself to outcomes, and when they fail, you collapse. You attach yourself to people, and when they betray you, your mind rots in bitterness. You attach yourself to approval, and when the world withholds it, you drown in self-doubt. This is the weakness that kills men from the inside. But the Machiavellian understands that freedom of mind begins with ruthless detachment, not indifference, not apathy, but control. Detachment is the ability to stand unchained no matter what collapses around you. It is the art of not tying your inner state to forces beyond your command. It is the weapon that makes you sovereign. Picture two men standing in the storm. One clings to a tree, desperate, terrified, praying it won't fall. The other stands with nothing to hold but himself. Who survives? The one who does not cling. Why? Because clinging ties you to what you cannot control. If it falls, you fall. But detachment makes you unbreakable. The storm can tear away the world, but it cannot tear away your mind. Most men will never grasp this. They will attach themselves to everything: their pride, their possessions, their status, their relationships, their fragile dreams, and when any one of these shatters, so does their mind. They call it loss, but it is not loss, it is exposure. It exposes the fact that they never owned themselves. They allowed themselves to be owned by what they clung to. The Machiavellian does not make this mistake. He moves differently. He does not cling. He observes. He does not attach. He calculates. He uses the world, but he is never used by it. He enjoys fortune when it comes, but he does not shatter when it leaves. He commands loyalty, but he is never dependent on it. He seeks power, but he does not lose himself. When the winds of power shift, He stands apart, above, untouched. Now ask yourself, how much of your suffering comes from things you cannot control? Think of the last time you replayed an insult for hours, the last time you obsessed over someone's opinion, the last time you tortured yourself over a failure you could not undo. Every moment of that pain came from attachment. Attachment to approval, attachment to the past, attachment to illusions. Detachment burns those attachments to ash. When you detach, you rob negative thinking of its fuel. Fear starves, because fear only exists when you cling to what might be taken. Doubt weakens, because doubt only grows when you attach to perfection. Pain loses its grip, because pain feeds on the idea that something should have been different. Detachment cuts all of this away. But, make no mistake, detachment is not coldness. It is not the death of feeling. It is the discipline of power. It is the ability to feel without drowning, to act without clinging, to endure without breaking. A detached mind is not numb, it is sovereign. It chooses where to give energy, where to place meaning, and where to cut losses without hesitation. This is how you must operate. When people insult you, detach. Why tie yourself to their weakness? Their words only chain you if you give them weight. Strip them of power. When failure arrives, detach. Do not cry for what is lost. Study it. Extract the lesson and move forward sharper. A man who cannot detach from failure will always fear it, and fear is a leash. When betrayal strikes, detach. You knew betrayal was always a possibility. Machiavelli himself wrote that loyalty lasts only until it is inconvenient. Why act surprised? Why bleed over what was always in human nature? Detach. Calculate. Move on. When fortune leaves, detach. Wealth, status, position, these are tides. They come and they go. Tie yourself to them and you drown when they shift. Stay above them, and you can always rebuild. Detach from the approval of the crowd. The masses will applaud you one day and spit on you the next. Their cheers mean nothing. Their insults mean nothing. Both are just noise. Unreliable, unstable, fickle. If you are attached to their validation, you will rise and fall at their whim. But if you detach, you rise regardless. Detach from outcomes you cannot command. Why waste energy obsessing over what lies beyond your reach? You cannot dictate the storm, but you can dictate how you endure it. The Machiavellian does not gamble on chance. He focuses only on what lies within his sphere of control, and he bends that into dominance. Detach from the past. The past is not a chain, it is a lesson. To cling to it is to bury yourself in a grave of ghosts. To detach from it is to use it as ammunition. Detach from illusions of permanence. Nothing is eternal. Fortunes shift, alliances dissolve, bodies decay. To cling to what cannot last is to guarantee suffering. To detach is to embrace reality as it is, not as you wish it to be. And once you embrace it, you are never surprised when change comes. You are ready, always ready. Understand this. The world will call this ruthless. They will say you are cold. They will whisper that you feel nothing, but they misunderstand. Detachment is not the absence of feeling, it is the mastery of it. The detached man feels deeply, but he is not controlled by what he feels. He chooses. He decides. He bends emotion to his command, and that is the ultimate power. So let them call you ruthless. Let them call you cold. While they drown in their attachments, you stand sovereign. While they cling, you cut free. While they shatter, you endure. That is the Machiavellian path. Write it in the comments. Now, detachment is my power. I am unmoved by weakness. Burn that into your mind, because the man who masters detachment cannot be broken. He may lose, but he is never destroyed. He may bleed, but he never collapses. He may face storms, betrayal, collapse, chaos, but he remains. He stands. He rebuilds. He endures. And in the end he wins. This is the fourth law. Ruthless detachment. Break the chains or be dragged by them. Choose. Number 5. Turn poison into power. Most men fear negative thoughts. They run. They hide. They beg for relief. But the Machiavellian does not run. He converts. He takes poison and distills it into strength. Every dark thought, every doubt, every insult, they are not curses. They are raw material. Weak men are crushed by their thoughts because they treat them as commands. Strong men use them as fuel because they treat them as sparks. You must learn to see negativity as a weapon in disguise. When doubt whispers, "You can't," you do not argue. You sharpen your will to prove it wrong. When failure sneers, "You are broken," you do not crumble. You use the pain as discipline. When others mock, "You are nothing," you do not despair. You convert that venom into cold determination to rise above them. This is psychological alchemy, transforming what should destroy you into what strengthens you. Think of fire. To the careless, it burns. To the Machiavellian, it forges steel. Your mind must be that steel. Every scar, every rejection, every humiliation, they do not weaken you, they temper you, they strip away softness, they harden resolve, they create something untouchable. Most men ask, "How do I silence these dark thoughts?" The answer: you don't. You weaponize them. You take them, reshape them, and turn them into ruthless drive. If someone doubts you, you say, "Good, now I will use that as proof when I rise." If you fail, you say, "Good, now I have learned what they haven't." If you are rejected, you say, "Good, I am not for the weak to accept anyway." This law is brutal because it forces you to embrace what most men run from, but that is why it works. Negativity becomes a slave, not a master. Fear becomes a signal, not a cage. Pain becomes a lesson, not a sentence. Say it now in the comments. I turn poison into power. This is the Machiavellian secret most will never grasp, because while they beg for comfort, you turn their insults into armor. While they drown in despair, you turn failure into strategy. While they hide from pain, you sharpen your blade with it, and in the end, you will rise, not in spite of negativity, but because of it. Number 6. Silence is a sword. Use it to slay weakness. Understand this: negative thinking thrives in noise. The more you give it voice, the more you give it strength. Every time you speak your fears, every time you confess your doubts, you breathe life into them. Weak men think words are harmless, but Machiavelli knew better. Words are weapons. They can build armies or destroy kingdoms, and most men destroy themselves with their own tongues. The Machiavellian path is different. You do not hand your enemies the blueprint of your weakness. You do not announce your doubts to the world. You do not scatter your inner struggles. In the marketplace of sympathy, silence becomes your shield, your mask, your blade. You carry your burdens like stone, heavy but unspoken. You starve negativity by refusing to feed it through your lips. Think carefully. How many times has a man magnified his misery by speaking it aloud? A small worry becomes a storm once it leaves his mouth. A single doubt once shared grows into a permanent label. I can't. I'm not ready. I'm afraid. Say it. Enough, and you carve it into your identity. The Machiavellian understands. What you speak you strengthen. What you silence you weaken. This is not superstition. It is strategy. Silence, however, is not passive. It is not the absence of speech. It is a calculated presence, a tool, a weapon. When you choose silence, you control the battlefield. You keep enemies blind. You deny them access to your mind. You leave them guessing. They want to know what you fear, what you crave, what shakes you, but you reveal nothing to them. You are unreadable, and unreadable men are untouchable. Consider this: when others panic, they rant, they scream, they confess, they reveal, and in those moments, their enemies see everything: their weaknesses, their insecurities, their limits. But when you are silent, when you sit calm and unmoved, no matter what burns inside you, the world sees nothing. Silence unsettles, it intimidates, it forces others to wonder what you know that they don't. This is why silence is a sword. You wield it not by speaking less but by speaking with precision. Words become rare, sharp, cutting. When you do speak, it is calculated. It carries weight because it is not wasted. A ruler who talks endlessly weakens his authority. A man who reveals everything bleeds his strength. But the one who speaks sparingly with intention creates impact. His silence builds mystique. His words cut deeper because they are few. Now, apply this to the war against negative thinking. When doubt arises in your mind, the weak man will rush to speak it aloud. I'm scared. I don't know if I can do this. I feel worthless. But the Machiavellian says nothing. He contains it. He suffocates it in silence. He gives no voice to weakness. And in that silence, he strips the thought of power, even in your private moments. Discipline your tongue. Don't allow yourself to spiral aloud, muttering weakness into existence. Your own words shape your reality. If you must speak, speak commands, speak strength, speak cold, calculated affirmations of control. But never give your doubts the dignity of sound. Machiavelli himself taught that appearances matter more than truth. What people see and hear from you becomes their reality. If you speak like a man of weakness, you are weak. If you remain calm and silent, even in turmoil, you project power, and power once perceived becomes real. Understand this, too. Silence protects you not only from yourself but from others. Most people are not allies, they are opportunists. Share your fears and they will use them. Share your failures and they will spread them. Share your insecurities and they will exploit them. The Machiavellian man gives no such ammunition. His silence denies others leverage. They know nothing so they control nothing. But do not mistake silence for inaction. It is not the absence of movement, it is the control of it. Silence buys you time to calculate, to observe, to plan. While others drown in chatter, you watch. While they expose themselves, you remain concealed. This is power. Ask yourself, how many wars have been lost because of careless words? How many lives destroyed because men could not control their tongues? In politics, in business, in relationships, the principle is the same. The loose tongue is the death of empires. The disciplined tongue is the architect of them. To live by this law, you must cultivate restraint. It will not come easily. The urge to vent, to rant, to defend yourself, it is strong. Weak men feel powerful when they speak their emotions, but they are merely broadcasting their chains. You must train yourself to resist, to let silence speak for you, to let calmness be your armor. Silence unsettles enemies, but it also strengthens you. By refusing to voice negativity, you condition your mind to endure it. You learn to face it without giving it form. You learn to let it die in your thoughts rather than planting it in reality. This is the fortress mind in action, fortified by restraint, unbroken by expression. Imagine a man mocked publicly. The crowd laughs. He says nothing. His silence unsettles them. They expected weakness. They expected defense. They expected reaction. But instead they meet stone. That silence burns louder than any speech. That silence declares, "You cannot touch me." And in that moment, the mockery loses its power. Silence must also extend to victory. The weak man brags, announces, seeks recognition. He feeds his ego with words, but in doing so, he creates envy, invites sabotage, and exposes his strategy. The Machiavellian remains silent even in triumph. He lets others wonder how he rose, how he achieved, how he survived, and in that mystery, his power multiplies. Now bring this law into your daily life. When fear whispers inside you, do not speak it, observe it, strip it, contain it. When someone tests you, resist the urge to explain, to justify, to react. Hold your silence, let your calmness make them nervous. When chaos rages, don't add to the noise. Become the one still voice of calculation. That stillness will command respect more than 1,000 desperate words. Say it in the comments now. My silence is a weapon. My calm is my strength. Repeat it until it carves itself into your bones. Because this is not just a law, it is a way of being. Once you wield silence as a sword, you no longer bleed weakness into the world. You no longer hand your enemies leverage. You no longer give your doubts a stage. You become unreadable, untouchable, and unforgettable. The world will call you cold. They will say you are detached, distant, difficult to read. Good, let them, because the unreadable man is the dangerous man. The silent man is the powerful man, and the Machiavellian man, the man who wields silence with precision, is the one who controls both himself and the world around him. Number 7. Command your inner narrative or be ruled by it. Every man lives under a story. Some call it fate, others call it destiny, but Machiavelli knew better. It is neither. It is narrative. The story you repeat to yourself day after day becomes the law of your life. Negative thinking is nothing but a corrupt narrative, a broken script that chains your mind and poisons your decisions. You whisper it enough and you begin to live it. I can't. I'm not enough. I'll never rise. These are not truths, they are lies disguised as destiny. This is why weak men collapse. They hand over authorship of their story to fear, to failure, to the voices of others. They allow a narrative of weakness to be written into their minds until they no longer resist it. They become characters, not rulers, trapped in someone else's script. But the Machiavellian man refuses to be a character. He is the author. He seizes the pen. He rewrites the script. He bends his own mind into obedience. He knows this brutal truth. The story you command within becomes the reality you enforce without. Understand this clearly. Every empire was first an idea. Every crown was first an inner law. Before Caesar ruled Rome, he ruled himself with the conviction that he was Rome. Before Alexander carved an empire, he carried the narrative that he was destined to conquer. These men were not superhuman, they were sovereign over their inner stories. That is what made the world bow to them. You too live under a law. The question is whose law? The law of weakness or the law of strength? The law of fear or the law of command? Negative thinking thrives when you surrender this inner sovereignty. It whispers the same story until you start to believe it. You are small. You are powerless. You cannot change. But when you seize command, when you become the author, you destroy that narrative with a single decree. This is the essence of the seventh law. Write your own law and your mind will obey it. You must strip away the slave story, kill it, replace it with the ruler's decree. I am untouchable. I am sovereign over my mind. I bend my fate with my will, and then repeat it not once, not twice, but relentlessly daily, until the words carve grooves into your very identity. Because repetition is law, law is power, and your inner law must be merciless. The weak man drifts. His story is blown about by the winds of circumstance. If he is praised, he thinks he is strong. If he is mocked, he thinks he is weak. If he wins, he believes. If he fails, he collapses. His story is fragile and, therefore, so is he. But the Machiavellian man does not drift. He shapes his narrative like iron, hot, hammered, forged, unbreakable. He does not wait for the world to write his law. He writes it himself, cold and absolute, and then he lives by it without question. His story becomes his armor. It becomes his fortress. It becomes his weapon. Think about it. How many times have you told yourself a story that chained you? I'll never be good enough. I can't handle this. Things will never change. Every one of those is a law you allowed to govern you. You obeyed it. You bowed to it. But it was nothing more than a story you chose to believe. The moment you command a new story, a new law, everything changes. This is the final strike against negative thinking. Because once you rule your inner narrative, nothing external can rule you. Failure no longer becomes a prison. It becomes a paragraph in your saga. Pain no longer becomes a curse. It becomes a chapter of strength. Betrayal no longer destroys you. It becomes a lesson you use to sharpen your strategy. Machiavelli himself wrote, "Men are governed by the stories they believe." That is the raw truth. The world may wound you, but what wounds you more is the story you attach to the wound. The insult is not what breaks you, it is believing it defines you. The failure is not what crushes you, it is believing it proves you are finished. But the Machiavellian bends narrative itself. He chooses what every event means. He chooses the frame, the story, the law, and by choosing he commands his own fate. This is why the seventh law is the most brutal of all, because it requires sovereignty, total merciless sovereignty over the battlefield of your own mind. You cannot half command it. You cannot write a weak story and expect strength. You must craft a ruthless law and enforce it daily. Say it in the comments now. I command my story. My mind obeys me, because here is the secret. Once your mind accepts your law, reality begins to bend around it. You act differently. You carry yourself differently. You endure differently. Others respond to you differently. And soon what was once just inner narrative becomes external truth. This is the cold psychology of power. The weak man says, I will believe when I see. The Machiavellian says, I will see because I believe. That is the law. So write your law now, not tomorrow, not when you feel ready. Now write it. Repeat it. Enforce it. Let it become your armor, your weapon, your throne. And when negative thinking comes again, as it always will, you will not collapse. You will laugh, because you know the truth. Its power is an illusion, and illusions shatter the moment you command your own story. Now you've walked through them. 7 brutal, Machiavellian laws. 7 weapons forged not for comfort, but for war. 7 principles designed to kill negative thinking at its root and rewire your mind into something cold, ruthless, and unbreakable. Do not mistake what you have just heard. These are not tips. They are not motivational quotes. They are laws, iron, absolute and merciless. Laws that separate the rulers from the ruled, the sovereign from the slave, the untouchable from the broken. Let's strip away the illusions. Weak men will hear these laws and nod. They will say, "That's powerful." And then tomorrow, they will return to weakness. They will let doubt run unchecked in their minds. They will let fear whisper at their gates. They will let others shape their perception, control their narrative, and bleed them of power. They will nod at strength, but live as slaves. But you are still here. That tells me you are different. You are not here to be comforted. You are here to be reforged. You are here to cut the parasite of negativity out of your mind and to replace it with iron law. So, listen again, not as theory, but as command. The first law: cut the root, not the branch. Weak men swat at their doubts as if they are flies, but the Machiavellian knows doubts are not insects, they are roots. If you do not kill them where they begin, they grow back stronger. This law teaches you to strike at the origin. The moment a thought of weakness rises, you do not negotiate, you do not entertain, you execute. Cut the root and the parasite dies. Fail to cut it and you will forever fight its branches. The second law: dominate perception or perception will dominate you. Most men are slaves to their interpretation of reality. They see obstacles and call them dead ends. They see loss and call it failure. But the Machiavellian reframes everything. To him, pain is sharpening, loss is training, rejection is information. He controls perception so completely that reality bends to his frame. Understand this: your life is not what happens, it is how you interpret what happens. Dominate perception and you dominate life. The third law: build the fortress mind. Every kingdom that falls from the inside. The same is true of your mind. If your inner defenses are weak, negativity will invade, corrupt, and sabotage you from within. The fortress mind filters all thoughts, guards the gates, and refuses entry to weakness. It does not bend to insult. It does not collapse under failure. It does not beg for approval. It stands self-sufficient like a citadel of stone, unmoved, unshaken, untouchable. The fourth law: detach ruthlessly or be dragged into weakness. Attachment is slavery. To cling to people, to outcomes, to illusions you cannot control. This is the food of negative thinking. The Machiavellian severs those chains. He does not depend on approval. He does not tie his identity to outcomes. He does not weep when fortune leaves. He detaches, observes, and acts. This law is cold. Yes, but it is clarity, and clarity is freedom. The fifth law: turn poison into power. Negative thoughts will never vanish completely. Doubt, fear, insult, they are part of life. But the Machiavellian does not fear them. He converts them. Every insult becomes fuel. Every failure becomes training. Every scar becomes armor. He turns poison into strength. This is psychological alchemy. Weak men drown in negativity. Strong men drink it, transform it, and rise sharper. The sixth law: silence is a sword. Weak men love to speak their doubts, to confess their fears, to broadcast their weakness, and in doing so, they magnify it. But silence starves negativity. It gives it no voice, no power, no form. Silence unsettles enemies, confuses rivals, and keeps you unreadable. It protects you from yourself and from others. The man who masters silence does not bleed weakness into the world. He controls his words like he controls his weapons, rare, sharp, and devastating when unleashed. The seventh law: command your inner narrative. This is the final blow. Negative thinking is not random, it is narrative. A corrupt story you've allowed to run unchecked in your mind. I can't, I'm not enough, I'll never rise. The Machiavellian kills that script and writes a new one. He declares a law over himself. I am sovereign, my mind obeys me, I am untouchable. And he repeats it daily until the story becomes reality. This is sovereignty. This is kingship of the self. This is what makes you unbreakable. 7 laws, 7 blades. Together they form a code so ruthless, so absolute that negative thinking has no room to exist. It dies at the root. It starves in silence. It is stripped of meaning. It is crushed by detachment. It is burned into fuel. And finally, it is annihilated by the sovereign narrative of the ruler's mind. This is the convergence, the point where all 7 laws collide into one truth. You are untouchable. But listen carefully, because this is where most men fail. They think power comes from knowing. It doesn't. It comes from enforcing. Knowledge is worthless without law. Weapons mean nothing if they stay on the table. The man who only listens is no different from the man who never heard. So what will you do? Will you let these laws fade the moment this ends? Will you nod, agree, and then tomorrow let doubt walk freely through your gates? Or will you carve these laws into your mind and live them daily without compromise, without excuse, without mercy? Because, here's the truth, weakness will test you. It will not die easily. It will whisper again. It will return again. It will try again. The difference between ordinary men and rulers is not that rulers are free from weakness. It is that rulers kill it daily, ruthlessly, without hesitation. Say it now in the comments. I am untouchable, not as a wish, as a decree, as a law, as the story you will live under from this day forward. Most men will never dare to live like this. They will remain chained by doubt, dragged by fear, broken by perception. But you have a choice to be ordinary or to be sovereign, to live by weakness or to live by law. The 7 laws are before you. The fortress is waiting. The throne of your mind is empty. The question is simple. Will you claim it? Because if you do, if you obey these laws with ruthless consistency, you will not just kill negative thinking, you will transcend it. You will not just silence weakness, you will erase it, and in its place, you will rise as something rare, feared, and unbreakable. That is the convergence. That is the point where the slave dies and the sovereign is born. You are untouchable. Now listen, because this is where everything changes. You've been given weapons, 7 laws, 7 blades forged from Machiavellian steel, but weapons on the table mean nothing. Power unused is power wasted. Knowledge unpracticed is weakness disguised as wisdom. The question is not whether you understand these laws, the question is whether you will live them. Because understand this, the world will test you, it will insult you, it will betray you, it will strike you when you least expect it, and in those moments, weakness will return, begging for entry, doubt will knock at the gates, fear will whisper again, negative thoughts will claw at your mind, demanding to be heard. If you have not lived these laws, you will crumble, you will speak weakness, you will believe lies, you will return to slavery. But if you have lived them, if you have burned them into your bones, then in that moment you will not falter, you will smile, you will stand, and you will say, my mind obeys me, I am unbreakable. This is not theory, this is war. Every day your enemy is not out there, it is in here, it is your mind. And every day you either conquer it or it conquers you. That is why these laws are brutal. That is why they are Machiavellian, because anything less will not save you. Machiavelli himself understood. Men are ruled by forces greater than themselves unless they seize control. Most never do. They are ruled by others, ruled by fear, ruled by fortune, ruled by their own weakness. They live and die as slaves, but the rare few, those who seize the law of their own minds, become sovereigns. They bend themselves first, and then they bend the world. The weak man waits for motivation. The sovereign man acts without it. The weak man cries when fortune leaves. The sovereign man rebuilds colder and stronger. The weak man seeks comfort. The sovereign man seeks command. That is the difference. That is the choice. So here is my final command to you. Do not let this be another video you enjoyed. Do not let this be just words you nod to. Take these laws and live them, test them, enforce them every day, every hour until they are not just lessons but your very identity. Live the first law, destroy weakness at the root. Live the second law, dominate your perception. Live the third law, guard your fortress mind. Live the fourth law, detach from chains. Live the fifth law, turn poison into strength. Live the sixth law, wield silence as a sword. Live the seventh law, command your inner narrative. This is your code. This is your arsenal. This is your crown. The world will never hand you power. You must take it. The world will never hand you freedom. You must carve it. The world will never silence your negative thoughts. You must kill them. And when you do, when you live these laws with ruthless consistency, you will be feared. You will be respected. You will be untouchable. Say it now and carve it into your soul. My mind obeys me. I am unbreakable.